Are we ready? Okay. I'm going to get started. I know that a lot of people are circling around looking for parking and dealing with the AT&T baseball traffic, etc., but I think we should get started just because it's 5 after. Welcome. Thank you so much. I didn't put my phone on mute, so if it rings, pardon me. You are in TechSoup. For those of you who don't know TechSoup is a nonprofit technology organization. We help other nonprofits and libraries and NGOs internationally with their tech needs. We've been around since 1987. There's a little bit of a kind of strange-looking timeline back there that's a little out of date, which you can take a peek at afterwards. But basically what we do is we help nonprofits, and we're working toward a time and place where every nonprofit and NGO on the planet has the tech resources they need to better achieve their mission. We do that through a number of different programs. Our main program is a product distribution program where we partner with big software and hardware vendors, Microsoft, Cisco, Symantec, Adobe, Intuit, etc. And we get those products at 5% of retail. So if you know nonprofits and NGOs that are 501c3 nonprofits, not somebody saying, hey, I have a startup but I'm not making any money, but like real nonprofits that have a tax status as a nonprofit, you should tell them to come to our site because they can save lots of money. 95% off of retail. And that 5% is what we charge for our processing fees, shipping and handling kind of thing. And that little social enterprise that we run funds the rest of the organization because we are a nonprofit. One of the programs that we are in 100 and, how many countries are we in? She's chewing. 100, so approximately 150 countries. We have partner orgs all over the world. One of the programs that TechSoup is responsible for funding is the program that I am involved in, my team, Caravan Studios. What we do, there was a banner for Caravan Studios, which I'm not seeing right now, but what we do, Caravan Studios is our division that builds apps for social benefit. We have 3 apps in the marketplace. One is called SafeNight, and SafeNight is an app that helps, everyone can put it on their phone, and basically SafeNight helps fund hotel rooms for people trying to escape domestic violence, survivors of domestic violence, when there are no available shelter beds. So right now, domestic violence agencies put people in shelters, and when there are no more shelter beds, or people are turned away from shelters for a number of different reasons, maybe they have a dog, maybe they have a 12-year-old son, no men are allowed in shelters at all, maybe they are themselves male, maybe they are not sober, for a number of different reasons, people get turned away from shelters, and they have to go to hotel rooms, and domestic violence agencies put them in these hotel rooms with budget cuts. They often can't afford them. So you can actually be saving a life by using SafeNight. More information on SafeNight, basically the app anyone who has it, it pops up, we need a hotel funded right now, and you make a donation. We've partnered with many domestic violence agencies all over the country, and it's in the US only right now. So that's at safenightapp.org. Second app we have in the marketplace is called 4Bells. And 4Bells is an app that is currently in a closed pilot. 4Bells is an app to help deploy known volunteers for time-sensitive urgent tasks. Thank you, Ron. Ron stayed late to help us. To help deploy known volunteers for time-sensitive urgent tasks. So what that means is that we're working with a bunch of organizations that use volunteers, and the app will be, so for example, Nutville Senior Dog Rescue is one of the organizations. When they need a volunteer, they'll make a call out. Right now, a lot of organizations use meetup.com or just an email blast, and what happens is either 10 people show up for the task or no one shows up. So either way, you got people that it's not a good situation. So this app kind of matches based on profile, saying, hey, I know that you speak Spanish and you know CPR, and you are by geolocation right near this emergency. So we're piloting that with San Francisco NERTs and CERTs, so neighborhood emergency response teams, and that's a pretty interesting app. Information on that is at 4bellsapp.org. Can you sit in one of these seats, please, because that's the table that we're using for. Thank you. And finally, the third app is Range. And Range is an app that is used to help locate free meals for youth in the summer months. And so 1 in 6 kids goes hungry in the summer months because they rely on the federally sponsored school lunches program. And as it turns out, between the months of June and September, kids still need to eat. And so Range, a lot of people who give out free meals, organizations, are not necessarily registered with the USDA. So or if they are, they aren't good at advertising themselves. They just put a sign outside. A lot of the food gets wasted. So that rangeapp.org is that URL. All of them are on caravanstudios.org. All of that to be said, that if you are interested in caravanstudios.org, just tweet at Caravan Studios, and that's me. And we would be happy to talk to you more about those apps. We use a community-centered design process, kind of a design thinking process where we actually talk to the community members, the nonprofit community members, and that is how we found out what was needed. So these are not apps that we made up. These are apps that actually the community said that they needed. Commercial for Caravan and TechSoup is now over. I want to first of all thank the sponsors for this meetup, and Iron Cactus right around the corner. If you love Mexican food, they're awesome. You should go and patronize them. And Hint Water. So if you want to tweet at Hint Water and at the Iron Cactus SF, I believe is the Twitter handle. It's in, if you look at the EOC Tribe hashtag, you'll see it. To thank them, that would be great. Any tweets that you guys do will show up here at hashtag EOC Tribe. We are back in business with live streaming, which is exciting. So please say hello to Lilia and Michael, our new streaming techs, which we're really excited about, which means that this meetup is actually available to anyone who has access to the internet. We did that for a long time and then lost our streaming techs, and now we have 2 new ones, and we're very excited. Welcome. Wanted to tell you guys that there is a Twitter contest to encourage engagement tonight. Salesforce has generously donated a swag bag full of goodies, and some of them are really good. They're not just pens, lots of cool things, including a speaker, like a room speaker. And we are going to be judging the contest based on the tweet with the most engagement. So write good tweets because you want people to favorite them and you want people to retweet them. So the tweet with the most engagement gets the prize. Wi-Fi information right here on the wall. Access the Wi-Fi network. There it is. I want to make a shout out to my volunteers. Crystal, Dorothy, Mark at the door. There's Mark. Mia at the door, who you guys met. Susan Chavez at the door. She's having a baby pretty soon. I think that's our volunteer crew tonight, but we had some great volunteers, so I want to thank the volunteers because we couldn't do it without them. If anybody has an Android charger, Dorothy needs one tonight. So if you do, pass it to Dorothy, or put your hand up and I'll get it and pass it to Dorothy. Rosette has one? Awesome. And with that, I would like to do the first part of the meetup, which is the job announcement section. Who has some job announcement vacancy openings to announce? Come up here.
Thank you, Susan. I'm Amy Miller. I work at Automatic Labs, a connected car startup. We provide hardware, software to connect your car with the rest of your life on the internet with a whole platform full of apps, as well as help you be a more fuel-efficient driver and safety features, etc. I run customer care and community there, and I'm looking for a new community manager. It's a support-focused community role, not a marketing-focused community role. So doing support via community channels such as our customer community hosted on Get Satisfaction, as well as Twitter and Facebook and some other areas. So come talk to me if you are at all interested in applying for that role. Thanks.
And hi, I'm Lotus Schubert. I'm with GE Software, the General Electric, who does the power plants and aircraft engines and stuff like this, and healthcare equipment. And we're building IoT platforms, IoT solutions. We're looking for developer evangelists, developer advocates on one side, and also for marketing campaigns, marketing program managers, specifically with a focus on IoT. we're based out of San Ramon, so it's a little bit of a commute if you're in San Francisco or know somebody, but thank you.
Are there other people? Oh, Rosette has some TechSoup jobs. Welcome, come in, have a snack, come in, have a seat.
My name is Rosette. I'm with TechSoup. I'm the communications director here. We have 11 openings right now, 4 of which are internships. The other 7 range from business analyst work to digital marketing manager to copywriter. I have not all of the job descriptions, but I can have all the job descriptions in the back, but I have the ones that pertain to people who have similar skills to community online managers. So digital marketing manager, copywriter, community research and planning internship, equivalency determination specialist, mobile app pilot project internship, online community engagement internship with Caravan.
I think I filled that.
You did? It's still on. It's still online. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's
Filled it.
senior business analyst, senior manager with corporate relationships, senior project administrator, business modeling and development internship, business systems application specialist. So we have both technical and non-technical work. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosette. Oh, great. Go for it.
So, hi, I'm Alicia Schmidt. I'm with Salesforce Foundation. We are actually hiring a community engagement specialist. You would have the joy and pleasure of working with myself. We actually took the job down. We had a lot of interest, but if you are interested, come and talk to me, and I will hook you up. Thanks.
Bathrooms are right there. I forgot to say my name. My name is Susan, by the way. And does anyone have other announcements? Community general announcements.
Sure. So, hey, my name's Brad. I'm the co-founder of a new company in SF called OpenSpace, and what it is, it's the Airbnb for co-working space. The way it works is that hosts can take their apartments and rent it out during the day to guests who want to rent them as co-working. So if anyone's interested in joining the community, either being a host, you can make up to about $1,500 a month doing this, or a guest if you're looking for to meet interesting people. You need really interesting space with like fast Wi-Fi, free coffee and tea all day, either on the host or the guest side. Please come see me, and for everyone, we have an OC Tribe coupon, and it will give you like a free first day. And so it's open space, Airbnb for co-working, and the URL is bookopenspace.com. Thanks very much.
Other community announcements? Okay. Who is looking for work right now? Show of hands. Look at all those smart people. Everyone, okay? Talk to them after. With that, I am very excited. Oh, one more thing, one more announcement, which is that next month we have Skylar of Livefire, which is the parent company of Storyfy, and talking about content community curation, and I'm very excited about that. If you haven't already joined our meetup group, it's meetup.com/OCTribe, just like the hashtag. And we have a Facebook group. I could go on forever, but I'm not going to because we have a panel. So tonight we have Alicia Schmidt, Phoebe Van Kat, both community directors at Salesforce, and Karen Jamison and Dorothy Ponton, both community members who use Salesforce. Our own Queen Volunteer, Crystal Coleman, is the moderator, and I'm going to let them take it from here. Thank you.
Hopefully it doesn't make too much noise as I detangle this. Oh, look at you. There we go. Oh, I get to be in the middle. Oh, goodness. Okay. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us here tonight. We've got a really interesting panel ahead for you. So I think we're going to start. We've got some questions that we're going to kind of guide everyone through, and then of course we're going to have time at the end for your questions as well. And if you have a question that's kind of really relevant to the question we're discussing at the moment, that you think like, I want to get their brains fresh on this, feel free, raise your hand. We've got a wireless mic. Hopefully someone, Lewis, if you can kind of keep an eye out, and if you want to grab the wireless mic. So we'll have a runner, and for the Q&A portion, we'll have a runner as well. The reason we want the question to be on mic is for the live stream, so that's why it's important. So I think first, if we have everyone just introduce themselves briefly and kind of talk about, for our Salesforce peeps, what you do at Salesforce, and for our customer peeps, what your communities are, and tell us a little bit about those.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming out. My name is Phoebe Venkat, and I'm head of engagement for our 2 million member customer success community. So I'm happy that you're here tonight. Thank you.
So as I mentioned before, I'm Alicia Schmidt. I work for the Salesforce Foundation, and I work on customer success, which I used to work for nonprofits. I had no idea what that meant when I first came to the Salesforce Foundation. So it just means I help nonprofits use our products more effectively. And so I work on that team, and a couple of years ago I helped launch the Power of Us Hub, which is our online community for our nonprofit users of Salesforce.
Hi, I'm Karen Jameson, and I work for ETR. That's a health and education nonprofit. I'm the IT director there, manager. And I am a grateful recipient of the Salesforce Foundation grants. If you don't know, Salesforce gives away 10 free licenses to Salesforce, as to nonprofits, to the enterprise level of Salesforce, which is pretty darn amazing. And then you get significant massive discounts on additional licenses. So we started with just the first 10, and I think we're up to 30 or something licenses now. I mean, it's amazing what you can do on the platform, and I have to say that the community, I've been in IT for, I don't know, over 20 years, and I have to say that the Salesforce community is the most welcoming and friendly and engaged community
Why we bring her.
I have ever experienced. So
She's not paid, I swear.
I'm not paid. And I also run, I should talk about my stuff as well, I also run a website that teaches coding, or I blog about how to code in the Salesforce language, force.com language. It's called womencodeheroes.com. And I also run a fabulous volunteer group for teaching experienced admins who have been Salesforce administrators for at least 3 years how to code. So we have a small group remote community, and we're just finishing our first program, and I'm happy to say that we've had only one person quit on us, and I think that's amazing for 9 weeks, so I'm very happy about that.
That's exciting. I'm Dorothy Ponton, and I'm Community Engagement Manager for Girls Leadership, which is a national nonprofit based out of Oakland. We teach parents and daughters communication skills, conflict resolution skills, K through 8 workshops, and a 6 through 12 summer camp. And we mostly have our community in person because our constituents, the people we serve, meet in person in programs that we run. And our current vision is to build online education and online community, because there's a really big gap between what we can accomplish, even with scholarships, and then the reality of geographic, economic, sometimes racial barriers, and the way that we can do that is to have a mobile-friendly online community. So yes, we have Twitter, we have Facebook. I do a lot of email back and forth with people, but we're excited to build a robust Salesforce-based online community as well.
Thanks, ladies. So getting into the questions, Salesforce kind of uses a couple of different types of ownership models of community, some really hyper-focused ones, and then also some distributed ownership ones where they're kind of run by the community. Alicia and Phoebe, can you talk about your experience with these different types of Salesforce communities and where you've seen each model particularly thrive and shine?
You want to talk about Power of Us first, and then I'll get to a broader?
Set me up for that one. No, I'm just kidding. So the Power of Us Hub, as I mentioned, is our online community for our nonprofit customers. We just launched about 2 years ago, and so I think, in some ways, community models kind of can evolve over time. So our model at first was hyper-focus on the nonprofit community and specifically on Salesforce administrators who were working at nonprofits. We literally started with 30 members and have kind of grown organically over time and very slowly over time. And I and a few other of my colleagues, people who are building and growing engagement in our community. After 2 years, we're now starting to get to a place where we may move to a more distributed model of engagement, where we actually have group owners who are owning engagement in their particular groups, and we're really helping support those particular group owners. But initially, that kind of hyper-focus was actually great for us. It allowed us to really build strong relationships with some of our key stakeholders, like Karen, for instance, and Dorothy. So it gave us an opportunity to kind of build that next level of moderators, that next level of community engagement folks in our community that are going to help us get to that distributed model. So it's been pretty interesting.
Thanks for sharing that, and I'm a big fan of the Power of Us Hub whenever I am in there. Just amazing people in there. In the Success community, we've also seen a shift in how our communities run. So the Success community started several years ago as just a Q&A board, right? Customers would go and ask a question, how do I write this trigger? Someone would answer, this is how you do it. So that's how it started. Now we're a large community, not just in size, but in scope. So we've still got that answers board that's really thriving today. We've got a gentleman in there, his name is Steve Moe, he's a customer, and he has 40,000 answers in there. So you can see that just from that one area we've grown out. We also have an idea exchange within the community, and that supports product innovation. So anyone, including anyone in this room, could go and submit an idea or vote on an idea to enhance our product roadmap. And we don't just take in the ideas, we actually put ideas into our product roadmap. Over the last 3 releases, I think we injected like 300 plus customer-contributed ideas into our roadmap. So that's another part of it. We've got a portion called collaboration, and that's where you'll see like collaboration groups, kind of like the meetup group that you have for OC Tribe. So there's different ways to participate. So because the community grew over time in size and in scope, we now have a distributed model. So the focus is not just on boards, it's on all different kinds of products and services. We've got really fantastic community leads in there that have groups as big as 50,000 people in groups. So they're actually the people who make the community work. So whenever someone says, great job, I'm like, it's the community leads out there. My job is to help empower them, get them the resources and the help that they need.
And just to give you guys a little bit of background to the difference between our communities, which is pretty stark. We have about 15,000 users in the Power of Us Hub, so it's a very small community relative to Phoebe's community, which has about 1 million users today. So yeah, I love the work that Phoebe does, and she is faced with some really tough challenges when you have a community that large. I often say that my job is pretty easy relative to Phoebe's because, to have 1 million users in a distributed community that is that large, it's very challenging.
Very vibrant.
Yes. Very, very hard to get your arms around that many users.
Karen and Dorothy, what do you think makes your communities particularly different and successful, both the things that kind of Salesforce enables you to do, and then just kind of what you have brought to the table, what other stakeholders within your companies have brought to the table?
I think one of the things that Salesforce has brought to the table is a really great platform that works well, because you can't build a community if it's frustrating to get the communication or to filter it out or get too much of it, so that's one thing that's worked really well, is just the way it's set up. And I feel like I was a solo. In my org we have I think we have about 80 people who work at ETR, and probably we do a lot of very different work across lots of grant-funded, mini projects, and so I help facilitate all of that. But there's not very many technology people there, so for me, I was feeling very, very isolated. So I think what has
some of the energy that I have been able to put in the last year, because I don't actually think I was part of the community, this is going to probably shock you, before October of last year, you know. But part of the passion that I feel for it is that it's just made my life so much easier. You know, you can ask a question and it's answered. You can build, you can have community, you can have very, very focused groups. I feel like Salesforce is a trusted partner in those communities, even though they created the community, they created the platform. I feel like there's not this big brother watching you. You can have very free conversations. I think it's a really, I've been thinking about this because I think it's a really fine balance between coming in there as, you know, the big Salesforce and saying, well, this is the way it works, and providing support. I think that, I mean, I have to give kudos to both of you in your building of the community, that it doesn't feel like there's a million people there. You know, it still feels very neighborhoody, you know? And I didn't know that there weren't, like, hundreds of thousands of people in Power Up.
There is. No.
Because the two of the groups that I am most active in are women-centered groups within Salesforce, and you know, Girlforce, which is the nonprofit side, has like 1,600 people in it, which is like a huge percentage of I think that's amazing. So I don't know. I love that you can build a neighborhood, and I'll stop talking.
Cool. I actually thought was the question about our communities that we're running, or okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I feel very grateful, especially as I've talked to other community managers, is how nicely our community members disagree with each other. And I would hope that that would be the case, because disagreeing, apologizing is like literally our bread and butter. It's what we're teaching people. And so that part's been great. The other is that they don't engage the trolls. If we say anything that's even a slightly political, I posted to Facebook when Bree Newsom took down the Confederate flag. Wow, did we get some trolls. They didn't engage with any of the trolls. Like, it was awesome. I love that there's this sense of, oh, I can just go there and know that, yes, I'm there if they need me, if they've got a question, I have that support hat that I wear for community, but that they are so self-sustaining and loving. I feel so fortunate. But then when I think about the distributed model of how there's an advocate parent, usually it's a Girl Scout troop leader, it's somebody who's really involved with the soccer program in their area, they're the person who then is now rallying everybody else to be part of our community. And again, that has just been an amazing way to instantly access what's relevant to people, ask them what they want, and then to the extent we can, give them what they need. Is this where I should tell my amazing Alicia Schmidt story? Okay. So I've actually only been on the Salesforce community as a community member since June. My roles as a community engagement manager have been growing in scope, and one of the ways that they grew was I've been evangelizing a parent-daughter book club. So we decided to start a web-to-lead form that lives on our website, and we're driving people with our newsletter and with tweets and Facebook posts.
Can you explain what that is for people who might not be as familiar with it?
Thank you. A web-to-lead form is something that you can do within Salesforce where you can decide what information you want to collect. In our case, it was just first, last name, daughter's grade level, and email. We wanted to keep it super simple. From within Salesforce, you just pick those fields, they generate code, and you plop it on your website, and then you instantly have this beautiful lead report that is exactly categorized and filtered in a way that can be very powerful if you want to do something with it, which in our case is to email them book suggestions and how to run a conversation, how to let your daughter be the one to run the meeting. Like, we have these grand visions that, like, yes, we're doing online outreach and programming, and it's all for free. And it turns out it was really popular, like even more than we could have predicted. And we sent out an email inviting people, and we had over 500 responses in the first 2 hours. which is awesome. And as it turns out, the default on those forms is 500 max per day. So we still had people signing up for our contact form, and we still had people signing up to volunteer, which is another Salesforce form on our website, and we still had people signing up for our newsletter, and they weren't showing up in Salesforce. And this is kind of scary to me. And so I go on to the Power of Us Hub, Google web to lead, a couple of keywords, and instantly come up with some conversations that talk about, oh yeah, there's this known cap, and you can get that cap lifted. That's great. It's Friday at 3 o'clock. Our director of operations, who is our Salesforce admin, is on vacation. And we have, once I looked into our technical details, a basic support package. And I'm thinking, oh my God, if the other people who are our partners, little name drop, a little lean in, a little, other people are going to tweet about this book club, we can't handle it. Because once you get past, I think it's 50,000, they can't keep even accumulating these leads. And so I'm envisioning this like, this is this terrible thing that happens when you are so successful that you can't count all of your people. And so I went to the Power of Us Hub, I messaged Alicia, and she, long story short, got me on a support path. That solution got kicked up from 500 people as the default to 5,000 people by 4:30, 4:45 that day. And now parents who want to register for our parent-daughter book club can do it and not get lost in some database somewhere. We can actually send them the information they want, and I'm blown away by how fast that happened.
It's a wonderful story. I actually kept Dorothy from telling that to too many people during the meet and mingle time before. I was like, save it for the panel. So going on to kind of a more general topic, a lot of businesses, nonprofits, we're all familiar with this. We have different profiles of members for our communities, from kind of front-end users to partners with our business or organization, management stakeholders that may have very different needs in kind of what they come to a community for. So I'd love to hear from all of the panel members, kind of how do you handle this kind of this segmentation of users? Do you really strictly segment the communities? Do you bring them all together? And what were kind of the pros and cons you went over making those decisions to either segment or not segment? Who wants to take it first? Phoebe looks like she does.
Well, we do have all kinds of members in our community because it's anybody with a Salesforce license, credentials can get in, but it's also anybody with a developer org license, and that's a free license. So even though we know there's different types of members in there, the way that I'm going to engage with different members, I mean, we're trying to scale as much as possible, but keep that homegrown feeling, the neighborhood feeling. So I try not to label and lump people into things because we don't want to get into thinking that is, okay, this person's a developer, he or she must want to interact this way and must want to join these groups. We don't know what they're going to want until they tell us, right? And everyone is an outlier. Nobody's really under a label. So our approach for the success community is really to bubble up the most important resources, the most vibrant resources, and bring that to the members. And if we can tailor, if it's obvious that they're a Salesforce administrator, we might suggest administrator groups for them to join. But beyond that, we don't really want to make any assumptions because our members surprise us every day, and that's what's fantastic about the community.
So as I mentioned, we started the sort of online nonprofit version of the Success Community about 2 years ago, and probably the top question I get asked all the time is, why would you do that? Because you have a very successful, huge community that your nonprofits could have been a part of. And I think, it was a very tough decision for us. There were certainly a lot of benefits for us to stay within the Success Community. There's a lot of resources in the Success Community. There's great people there answering questions. I think for us, a lot of the experts that were in the Success Community weren't nonprofit focused, and so we really wanted to create kind of our own neighborhood that was really focused on nonprofits, had nonprofit expertise, spoke the language of nonprofits, right? We wanted to have a little bit more control over the community. We are technically a separate organization from Salesforce, so we are actually a nonprofit, and we wanted to be able to have a little bit more control. As helpful as Salesforce.com is to the foundation, and certainly every staff person at Salesforce is very helpful to the foundation, wants to contribute and volunteer their time. Sometimes we're not the top priority, right, for people at Salesforce. They have other jobs, they have targets to meet, and so we just felt like we wanted to have a little bit more control over our own destiny. We gave up a lot to have that, but it also allowed us to be a little bit more nimble and do some development that has really helped us sort of build the community from that initial point of engagement. So
they have some of the best features in the Power of Us Hub that I'm waiting to get in my community.
So it's allowed us to be, like I said, a little bit more nimble, which is awesome, but we still work very closely with Phoebe and the folks in the success community. Salesforce also has a partner community, and so again, there's kind of a separate focus, subject matter focus and expertise that they've cultivated in that community. So.
Karen, I know you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's so bizarre being on this, and I just want to be like, oh, yeah, oh, and then, oh. But so it's hard for me to track what I was going to say when at the beginning of the conversation. But I think one of the things that I'm on both the Power of Us Hub and the Success Communities, and I mean I do experience some of those challenges. Your profile and your community street cred, because there's definitely a gamification piece to this. Is separate. So, that's kind of odd sometimes. Or you want to cross-post something, or you want to mention someone that is only on the Power of Us Hub and isn't active on the Success Community, so you can't do that. So, but I totally understand what you're talking about wanting to have your own focus, and sometimes, when you're, the little sister of, the big sister, it's harder to kind of scratch out your little part in the playground. So I totally get that. But one of the things that I wanted to say that I think is really cool about the Success Communities, either one, is that, actually I'm not sure about Power of Us Hub because I haven't actually tried to create a group. Can you create groups? You can. Okay. So one of the things that I think is really amazing is that you can create your own groups. So there's people who have created like company-specific groups on the chatter community, on the Success Communities, or industry-specific groups that have nothing, there are, people from, and they may be public or they may be private. So they can control, Salesforce doesn't control who the members are, they control who the members are. And I think that's really powerful. For example, I mentioned that I help run a group for women who are learning to code, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I did it anyway, and I'm just ignore if I'm not allowed to do this. But I have like 5 or 6 groups that are basically, like I have one for our leadership group, and I have one for our coaches and the leadership group, and I have one for our current learners, and I'm thinking ahead, and so I've got one for our graduates once they graduate from this course that we're doing, so that they can continue to get support. And this was built in, like I really hope this never goes away, because this is built into our basic plan of supporting these women once they get out of this course and suddenly they're doing it themselves, where we don't want them to feel like they're alone, and that ongoing support is really important. And I have a public group because we kept getting people who tried to sign up even though they're not in our courses, so I have a public group that's just for, and so that, it's crazy to me that I'm able to do this on a free platform and have this ability to kind of promote my wares, even though we're not actually charging anybody for this stuff, so, and it's helping Salesforce. But I just think it's amazing. I mean, I guess that's why I'm a good advocate, because I'm amazed by the stuff that we can do.
Like Kieran, I belong to the Power of Us Hub and Success Community. I couldn't tell you at this point what my decision tree as to where I go to which one first. We're also on the enterprise version. I don't think I mentioned that. So there are some things that I guess it just feels like I want to go, straight there, and others feels really nonprofit specific. And I definitely don't feel like it's so fragmented and segmented that it's a hassle to interact with both. For our own community, as I mentioned, our parent community and educator communities, because quite frankly, we're just not cool enough to have the girl community if we maybe get an Instagram intern or a Snapchat intern. So when it comes to online community right now, it's really parents and educators, and they're mostly in person. There are some Facebook groups, there's public Facebook and Twitter, and we're about 3 months away from having a Salesforce-hosted private community, and we're right at that decision point. Do we silo out educators versus parents? Do we silo people by daughters' grade level, which is traditionally how our coursework has been? Well, then people are going to roll over as their daughter's age, and what about people who still want to be involved after their daughter graduates and they've aged out of our program? So when it comes to, and again, we're pretty small, we're at just over 20,000, we're right at that inflection point of how do you take this community who's already awesome to each other and make that online space in a way that supports their ongoing needs. I'd love to learn.
That's really interesting. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to add to Karen's point, because I think it's important, you know, that the fact that we don't have shared profiles across our communities is a huge challenge. The fact that we don't have shared reputation across our communities is a huge challenge. It's something that we do want to solve, and our tech teams are, you know, actively working to solve, but to me, that's one of kind of the biggest challenges that we have, you know, as all of our Salesforce communities across all of those communities.
We're going to open it up so it's a more broader kind of community discussion in a second, but I'm going to throw in a question that I didn't send out before that came up. Kieran's a Salesforce MVP, which is kind of the super user program at Salesforce. And as Kieran mentioned, like Salesforce and the customer success community has been really instrumental in kind of, it sounds like, the advancement of your career. And that's one thing that it really strikes me. The more and more I learn about Salesforce in general is kind of the impact that just being a part of that customer success community can have, where it can directly result in people getting advancements in their own career, in kind of moving on to new careers. So Kieran, if you'd like to talk about that a little bit, and then if Phoebe or Alicia, if either of you would like to talk about kind of some of the things you've seen of how Salesforce has really helped improve people's lives. And then I promise I'll move off Salesforce questions into general stuff.
So yeah, I mean, I've worked for the same nonprofit for 17 years, and you know, had many jobs in that time within it. But this community is so amazing. It's made me think, oh, you know, I could possibly, hopefully my boss is not watching this, but you know, I could possibly think about moving somewhere else. Maybe 17 years is enough. But I think it's amazing. I really do think it's amazing. I can't tell you how many people, I think because I'm going to finish the sentence anytime soon here, but I think that because the platform itself is easy to, you know, is pretty easy to get ramped up on, and often it's the administrative assistant or, you know, someone who isn't like in a traditional IT role can get on and administer. I think that is really an amazing, amazing thing, especially given the, you know, crappy diversity stats that are out there for IT. I think it's a huge opportunity for women and for other minorities, or I know women isn't a minority, but I think it's really amazing because it presents this path that I don't know any other platform where in your job you can upskill using the things that you're learning and not have to, you know, even with the things that I'm doing with the women coding or admins who code, you know, if I wanted to learn to program in another language, I could take a 9-week boot camp, which would mean that I would have to pay for it. I would have to go out and, you know, take time off work to do that. And then I would have to take a leap of faith that someone was going to have to hire, you know, someone was going to hire me. Whereas with Salesforce, I think that it enables you to be able to do that within your job. You know, just take on that extra little bit of technical challenge and
and get the experience that you need to get, if you want to get a full-time developing job. So I think it's a rare opportunity, and I think it's given everything that's going on with the push to get more representative workforce within technology companies, I think it's a great time to start this track, and I think that the community is really part of that, because you can get encouragement. And when I say that the Salesforce community is supportive, I mean that it's overwhelmingly, amazingly supportive. You can post, like, even beyond the Salesforce hosted community, but if you look at the Twitter community with Salesforce, that's how I really met everybody. I started there's this great online free training called Trailhead that's amazing. And it teaches all of this stuff that you need to do to be a Salesforce admin, completely free. And also to be a developer, completely free. And now, how to just use Salesforce as a completely free. So I started they launched this in October of last year, and I started taking those trails, and I tweeted it. You get the badge, and then there's a little Twitter thing, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I tweet. And you get 17 people congratulating you. It's like I just think there's people who are and it's not just during business hours. This is not just the job. This is people's passion, So I think I don't know. I think it's amazing. Sorry.
Yeah. If you have any doubt of the passion aspect, there's a big launch last night. So if you search the Twitter hashtag struck by lightning, I think it is, yeah.
Or even stuck by lightning.
or stuck by lightning. Apparently there were some typo errors. Yeah, it was. I wasn't even searching that hashtag. I guess I follow a lot of Salesforce related people, and I was seeing it all over my Twitter stream last night. And there was a lot of excitement around it.
Wanted to add a couple cents in here. The community, not just Salesforce communities in general, online communities are the new golf courses, right? It used to be that to get into tech and certain industries and certain roles, you had to know people. Maybe your dad played golf with somebody, or you went to Stanford. I'm not knocking Stanford. But it's really, the barriers to entry into tech are really high and really hard. I'm not just talking about females. For a lot of different people, it is very difficult. If you don't have the right connections, drive the right car, you might not get there. So the community doesn't guarantee that you'll get there, but it comes stock full of people who have gotten there, who have fallen, stumbled, got back up, and they're people who, instead of being successful and moving on, they're successful, but on a parallel path, they also look back and hand the baton back and help you up. So I myself was a customer of Salesforce's before I joined their team last year. I was active in the community. I was one of those really annoying people that I think I liked everything and everybody. And I was just so excited because I wasn't that jazzed in my role at the time with the company I was working for. So it was an outlet for me. And I see that, and I actually gravitate towards members that I can tell that they have a voice, they want to be heard. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has something important to say. They may just not have gotten the chance yet. So our community, we don't care if it's your second try or your 50th try. We're here to support you, and that's not a marketing tagline. It is spoken from someone who was a customer in there and only had positive interactions with people. So.
And I'll just say I was joking with Karen earlier that she is going to have a new job very soon, because we have trouble with our Salesforce MVPs actually keeping them in a job, because they start getting more and more job offers when they become a Salesforce MVP and end up working somewhere in the ecosystem. So definitely community participation in terms of Salesforce leads to a lot of different opportunities. We actually at the foundation have hired probably 6 or 7 folks from the community that are active in the foundation community, and they are currently on the customer success team. So.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to, instead of being hyper-focused ourselves, we're going to pull it back a little and talk more kind of generally about community things. So I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on what you, from your experience, from what you've seen, from what you've done, what you think makes for a really great community manager. Anyone? We'll start at this end, maybe. Dorothy, I'll put you on the spot.
Sure. I think that it's not just about wearing multiple hats, it's about loving that there is a shelf full of hats. And that the intersection that community managers are of operations, product or production, depending on the industry, marketing, customer service, sometimes sales, although that feels the least, but when an organization has all of those roles, usually C-level and or V-level pieces to that, a community manager, and we're seeing more directors of community and higher level community roles, it's every single one of those hats that we wear, sometimes at the same time, which can sort of tip over a little bit. That's what I think makes a great community manager, is all the hats.
I think it is all of that, and I think that you have to really love helping people. You know, you have to be there. It has, in some ways, I think it's you just don't switch off. You don't stop caring because it's 5 o'clock. You may not get on, I mean, although I think everybody does, but it's about staying connected, and staying connected regardless of where that message is coming from, because I have people that I communicate with that are on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on the Power of Us Hub, on the Success Communities, and so I think that's why it's difficult for me to figure out where the hell the conversation happened, you know, because they're all over the place, and so I think that it takes someone who feels okay in that kind of, I don't even want to say it's murky water, because it's not. I mean, it's just gooey goodness. I don't know.
Milkshake.
There we go.
Milkshake. That's what we'll call it.
I think I missed the gooey goodness today because I had about 4 people tell me I was doing a horrible job today.
Well, you're not.
Thank you. But I think, Phoebe just mentioned, whispered to me, you have to have a tough skin to be a community manager, and I think that's absolutely true. Community management is more of an art than a science, and so, I always say that I probably fail a couple times every day with community management, and obviously I failed a few times today. A lot of times, it's interesting because I'm thinking about this a lot right now because I'm hiring somebody to be our next kind of community manager, and it's interesting to me how many people kind of come into these conversations saying, oh, I'm really outgoing, I love people, I love talking to people, I love conversations, and that actually really scares me because community management isn't about you, right? And it's not about you shining as an individual in the community, right? It's all about being able to shine that light on everybody else in your community. And so, I find that I get a lot of young people who are kind of like, yeah, I'd be a great community manager, I'm really social, I really love people, I'm going to be a connector. This is kind of the key, they're saying all the right buzzwords, and again, it scares me a little bit, right? Because when I'm really looking for someone who's passionate, right, who has that passion to help people, and really, I see my job as kind of a steward, right? So I'm a steward of a community. I don't own the community. I'm certainly just there to kind of promote the work that Karen's doing or the work that Dorothy's doing. That's really my role in the role of a community manager. And so I think, just somebody who has that passion to kind of raise up other people in the community, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
We're right in line. I think being a great community manager, you've got to be a servant leader. So for those that are newer to that term, you've got to lead by serving others. You do not lead by getting in front of others, pushing ahead, shining the light on yourself. You lead and you gain power, even if you're not aiming for power. You actually gain power from giving your power away, from seeing that person who's maybe not getting the attention that they need, not getting the resources they need, helping to connect them to somebody else. That's the role of a connector, not just to schmooze and be that social butterfly. It has nothing to do with that. It is about serving people day in and day out, and I think that's something to keep in mind all the time. If you're really interested in becoming a community builder or refining what you do, always think back to, am I putting everyone else ahead, in a good way. So.
Great points all. So this gets to the frequently brought up topic of ROI, the topic we all I think, secretly love to hate. I'm going to phrase it as this: can and should a community drive bottom line value? And if they do, how do you show this, not just in corporations, but in nonprofits, where the value is even harder and more tenuous to connect to the bottom line sometimes? Who wants to start on this one?
Our community is not we're not nonprofit, the Success Community, because we're part of Salesforce.com, but it's so important that the values and the strategic pillars of our community align with Salesforce's strategic pillars, because without that, we're in a silo and we're not connected to our business. If we're not connected to what Salesforce needs to deliver for its customers, then we're just an afterthought. So it's really important for us to influence product adoption. You know, we're able to prove out that those who are more active in our community adopt our products faster and are able to help others adopt. Those who are in our community coming from orgs that have bigger spend or spend more in our pipeline. So that's really important. So there's different kinds of ROI to focus on. There's the engagement and membership metrics that a community builder looks at day to day, month over month, to make sure and compare that the community is growing. But then there's metrics that I need to be well versed in so that I can talk to people at Salesforce. We have sales in the name of our company. So for me, it is ultra important that I know what I'm talking about when I talk to anyone, but especially those in sales and distribution. Because if I don't get their respect, how are they going to come and be valuable in the community? So I think that it's 100%.
So we have a social enterprise model at the foundation. So above the 10 licenses that we give away, we sell additional licenses at a deep discount, which Karen mentioned, and all of that money funds our operations as well as funds our grants program. So in a way, we have sales of what we call fundraisers, basically. And then we also, part two of our mission is around impact. And making sure that every organization that uses our technology achieves greater impact using that technology. So when I talk to my leadership team, I don't ever talk to them about engagement metrics. Their eyes would glaze over, they would go to sleep, roll back in their head. They don't care about engagement metrics, right? They care about, are we building more impact with our nonprofits, and are we raising more money from the nonprofits that are engaged in our community? And so, it's those business values that I'm reporting on in terms of ROI. I'm not saying those are easy metrics to deliver, but we have figured out a way. At Salesforce we have a usage metric where we can tell how well a customer is using our platform, and so we can tie those usage metrics back to customer engagement. And so we are very focused on ROI in that way. And I think a lot of nonprofits can do this, right? If you have a community, if your mission is all about advocacy, right, you can definitely tie community engagement, right, to your advocacy efforts. People who are more engaged in your community might sign more petitions, they might give you more money, they might volunteer more often, right? Whatever your business value is for your nonprofit, whatever value your leadership team cares about, that's what you should talk to them about, because that's going to get you more investment for your community.
I would say that it really depends on I think it depends on what you're trying to do. For example, we couldn't do Rad Women without a community. I mean, that's the whole point. So, I mean, it sort of defeats the purpose talking about ROI, because it wouldn't exist, and there's no I and there's no R other than what, fills our hearts. So there's a huge amount of personal investment, absolutely. It's definitely a labor of love. So, I mean, in those ways, I mean, if your business model is around community, then, no biggie.
No. Yeah, this is really interesting. I actually have read a lot of CMX and the CR and a lot of writing around like ROI. Should community managers be responsible for it? If so, what? Do you manage up to your executive team? Does your executive team say, here's what I want, and then you go figure out a way to measure it and make it better? I'm fortunate that my executive director is very interested in engagement metrics and is very happy to dig deep into Google Analytics or some social dashboard and say like, hey, did this thing that we did generate buzz, impact. I've recently evangelized the power of Twitter chats, which has been awesome. But the other hand, I'm very fortunate in that we have a baked-in system for evaluating our impact on our constituents, and that is that the educators and people who write our programs have a back end, a way of saying, okay, how do we actually know that parents and daughters are communicating better? Turns out they already wrote that into the system, and I'm now going to hopefully translate that into having an online community version of it. And we have a research institute, so they also, there's somebody doing the math is what I'm trying to say, and it's not me. But the blurry line between, in my case, my executive team gets really excited about demonstrating certain impact of certain projects that we do so that we can then go to a funder and say, thank you so much for this money, and please give us more so we can scale. Yeah, that can be challenging. You can measure all the things. Tell me 4 things. Tell me 4 behaviors that you want to be able to show that our community is doing or could be doing better, and then let's talk about that as an ROI.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is instead of, measure all the things, figure out what story you want those numbers to tell, and then figure out what numbers you need to tell that story. If you can work it backwards like that, that keeps you from kind of just a flood of data coming at you. This is going to be our kind of last pre-planned question, so start thinking about your questions, and we'll open the floor to the audience after this. Where do you see the profession of community manager in the grand world of business and nonprofit organizations? Is it a long-term profession, or is it kind of a stepping stone to new and differing paths? Philosophical question.
I'm going to say it could be either, it could be both, right? How I look at it, just from the few years I've been working in community, prior to my community roles, over the past few years I've been working, I was in marketing and communications, and I felt like something was missing. Like I was having a half of a conversation, and the other half was not there. So that's when I got into the community space. I wasn't looking for a community management role. It was more of, I want to be able to serve people, not just write employee articles and put them online and hope that someone liked them. It's not about me, it's about the people that I'm serving. So I think that it depends on what you want to make out of it, right? You can enjoy this job. It's a really fun kind of job because you meet all kinds of people. You get to connect with all kinds of people and help people out. But you can also look at this as something that, it's almost like you're a mini CEO, right? Because you are tasked with understanding. You may not know deep into every silo in your business, but just in the year that I've been working at Salesforce in its customer community, I mean, most of my work doesn't take place on the success community. Of course I spend time there. I spend time connecting with my colleagues. I spend time with customers in real life, at events like this, connecting with them on Twitter. So I feel like I'm learning so much, and maybe that one day that might translate it into being a founder of a company, or maybe not. It's an excellent job to be able to figure out what it is that you like to do and what you don't like to do, and also figure out what you're already pretty good at and maybe things that you need to focus on.
So from my perspective, I think in kind of corporate culture, the community manager and communities in general are becoming a larger part of the overall customer experience with lots of different companies and organizations. So I see it both as, if you're comfortable and you want to be a community manager, that's great, but it's also part of this larger conversations that are happening around what people call the customer journey or the customer experience. In terms of nonprofits, there's been community builders at nonprofits since the beginning of time. So I don't, I see community builders being in nonprofits, for a long time to come. I think the title will change, and this kind of cachet of the moment will change, but the work is going to be much the same, maybe on a different platform, maybe online, maybe whatever's next. I don't even know what's next, but who knows. So I think there will always be community managers, and there will always be kind of a stepping stone for community managers in terms of programs and client service and leading organizations. So.
I think, especially for nonprofits, I think that for-profits, I I think they're kind of they came late to the game that it's important to have that two-way conversation. As nonprofits, if we don't have that two-way conversation, we're not doing the work that our mission was there for. So I think that communities are just a part of any nonprofit that's going to survive. And maybe the same for for-profits. There's this whole transparent trust kind of culture that's starting to grow around for-profits. But I think it's, if you look at your mission as a nonprofit, it doesn't exist in isolation. It has to exist as a need within your whatever community you're trying to reach. And also, I think because of the growing financial realities, it becomes harder and harder to get people all in the same room. This is great, but there's only so much you can do of this before it just is not, it's not possible, it's not fiscally possible. So I think that keeping the communication and the community going when you can't actually meet in person because you can't get on a plane or you can't, attend that training or you can't, whatever it is, I think it's just really important, and I think it will continue to grow in importance.
I really like what all of you said, especially about the changing role of the concept of customer communities as part of the customer journey. In just the 2 years I've been calling myself a community manager, right? A lot of us built communities or did this kind of work well before we had that as a title. I've seen a lot of growth and fragmentation in, there's more the customer service oriented community manager, there's more the marketing oriented. I think that that's actually going to continue, and then there's going to be more and more companies like Airbnb or like Brad's company, Open Space, where the community is actually the product in a large way, that the ability for the hosts in this model to rapidly, effectively share ideas, advocate for whatever's going on internally, that culture and being able to manage that as a community is the power of the entire product, the entire company, and I think that we're going to see more and more of that. So in that sense, yes, the role will stay as community manager, but it's not necessarily going to be the same thing as somebody who's currently in community at Zynga versus somebody who's, currently in community at a nonprofit. Exciting times, though.
Cool. Okay, time for audience questions. Yes, Brad. If you can just wait for a sec for Lewis to get to you with the mic so we can make sure it is captured for the lovely web stream. Yes, that as well. So if you're watching on the live stream, hi, and feel free to leave questions there, or tweet the questions to the hashtag, and we'll incorporate them.
So my question is about starting a community from scratch. So let's say you have a stage where you have only 20 people, and then so what's the best advice or tips that you have for growing a community from scratch, and then how does that change when you get to 100 or 500 users?
Starting from scratch and scaling up.
Yeah, so I would say never start from scratch. So we went out to our stakeholder before we even launched the community. We went out to a core group of stakeholders, and we asked them what they wanted or what they would want in the community. And we really did a design process where we brought them into that process and got them invested early on. So when we launched our community, we probably had 40 or 50, what we called key stakeholders that were ready and waiting to engage community members. And so, I wouldn't ever start a community without your key stakeholders. Those are the folks that are going to really bring the value, and that's what's going to bring people back to your community. I would say that, we grew very slowly. We grew over time. It took me a lot of effort to discourage my leadership team from having kind of a big announcement of our community. Lots of people want to do these big launches, right? But what you find is, I was going to use that example actually. So this is kind of interesting. So Salesforce actually did a big announcement of the relaunch of their community, and I get the metrics from their communities because I find it very interesting. And so I looked at their metrics, and they had this huge spike in users after the big announcement, and then I looked the month after, and it was right back down to where it was before the big announcement. So I think, there's this myth of this big launch that suddenly you're going to, market to a bunch of people, and they're going to come, and they're going to find value and come back, and that's not how it happens, right? Engagement happens slowly over time. It's all about value, and that value builds over time, right? And so you just have to be persistent, and again, let community build community.
Preach. Love it. Anyone else? Yeah.
I think that you have to remember that the value of the community is the people in the community, and so, you can't, and and there's nothing worse than, that if you build it, they will not come. They're not just going to come. And there's nothing more sad than a sad, lonely little community, because all it does is drive people away. So you have to have a plan, and you have to have your key stakeholders who are going to go in there and it's like you have to seed it. It's not just a thing that's going to happen, and it's a lot of work.
So I had some issues describing this to my leadership team. Again, they had this idea that we could just launch and people would come and it would be a great party. And so I started talking to them about it as if we were throwing a party in high school. So we were back in high school, we were going to throw the coolest party in the world, and we wanted all the cool kids to come, right? And the cool kids showed up right at 7 o'clock, and they come into our party and it's completely empty and lame, right? And so the cool kids leave, they never come back, and we never throw a good party ever again, right? So this is not the experience that you want your community members to have. What do you do when you want to throw a cool party in high school? You invite your friends early, right? So they can come and get the dance floor going, maybe they're setting up the bar. Yeah, so, right? So, you invite your friends early, they get the party started for you, it looks cool, then the cool kids come and they have a great time, and you can actually, grow the party from there. So that's kind of the analogy that I started using, and believe it or not, it somewhat worked, so.
That's good. Yeah, and I would say too, Brad, if you have 20, you're not starting from scratch. You have those 20 people, and those are the people to as Alicia said, start doing the research with, start talking to them, start kind of making introductions amongst each other. So they get those relationships started, so that when you have a place that you're ready to kind of guide them and start building it up, they can go from 0 to 100. Zero to not 100 members, but thought is getting away from me. But they can go from they're not coming there not knowing each other already. There's already a camaraderie, there's already a connection, and then that will kind of spread as you start to bring more people into the community.
Sorry, I'll just add one more thing. We actually did a pilot community, so before we launched our Power of Us Hub, we actually did a pilot with some of our friends. So we did a pilot on the platform so that we could, figure out some of the harder challenges of the platform before we actually launched, and that was super helpful. And they were much more invested after the pilot, and they came into the new community with a lot more knowledge and understanding. So
cool. Does that answer? Awesome. We've got a question here at the front. There we go.
Hey there, my name is Alana, I work for Edutopia, and we are about to embark on creating almost like a advocate, facilitator, ambassador, awesome cool kid core of people, because we have a really robust online community, but we have kind of ignored our influencers that, tweet and, answer questions on behalf, but we've never really rewarded them extensively. And we don't really want to reward them, but we want to be able to empower them. So I'm just curious how many of you guys have done programs similar to that, where they're ambassadorships, maybe they're councils or that kind of thing, and maybe any ideas you have on getting started and things to avoid.
Yeah, so special people groups. Who wants to tackle that? Yeah, Phoebe.
Phoebe has one of the best.
We have an amazing world-class MVP program, which Karen is part of, and one of our top MVPs. An MVP is just a way to denote one of our top customer advocates. These are the folks who talk about Salesforce, talk about how they use it, talk about how they solve problems, and it's about a group of 200. So we do reward them, but it's what they want. It's not about just giving out stuff, although we did bring stuff today. Physical stuff is always nice, right? But you can't keep people engaged that way. You can't keep people, right, it's icing on the cake. If there's people who are looking for career opportunities and they want to grow in their current role, or they're looking to grow their skills to move on to the next role, like being an MVP will get you immediate exposure, but that path is not immediate, right? It's years and years that these folks have put into building themselves, building out their knowledge of our platform, and not only building out the knowledge, but sharing that knowledge. A key factor in determining if someone's a great MVP is whether or not there's someone who, they're a servant leader, I'm going to say that again, there's someone who they want to share what they've learned and want to give back.
So I'll speak from the inside out. And like, you don't become an MVP because, I mean, generally, you don't become an MVP because you want to be. Although you do want to be, don't get me wrong. I love being an MVP. I'm very new at this MVP thing. And I think as a nonprofit especially, it's like the rest of us nonprofit people, when we become MVPs, we're like, oh my God, is this how everybody lives? Because I just don't understand this. It's hard to take, but I think that it's really good to reward the people who are your brand ambassadors, you know, because most of us who are those people are innately those people, and they're going to do it for you or they're going to do it for somebody else, and you want them to do it for you, you know. I would not do this if I didn't love Salesforce and I didn't love the community, you know. If I hadn't gone to Dreamforce that first year and realized this is amazing, there's always people here, and if the foundation wasn't there, you know, I wouldn't even know about it, you know, because we get you know, discounts on software from Microsoft and Adobe and all of those sort of stuff. It's not unusual, but the support that you get and the fact, you know, that's what helps grow the advocates within your customer or constituent base. And I think it's so important to give recognition of that. And actually the thing that's really cool about the MVPs is that I know they're decided by Salesforce, I believe they're decided by Salesforce, but they're nominated from the community. So it's the peers, your peers, who are saying, this person has given me a lot of help. And it's about longevity. Although I've only really been doing it since October last year, you know, but I'm really prolific. But I think that it's, you know, it's not about flash in the pan, because you have to be able to be in it for the long haul, and I think that you only know that when people have been around for a while.
So I think recognition, I'm hearing both kind of like from the company, from the peer, stuff is nice, but it's icing on the cake. What kind of other things play into what really makes for a good feeling kind of ambassador program on the side of the ambassador, kind of other than obviously all the swag and stuff like that, but kind of, to use the icing on the cake metaphor, too much icing, you get sick of it. So if you guys could talk about that a little bit, if you have thoughts.
Yeah, there's a couple more things. Some of our MVPs, a lot of our MVPs are motivated because they're innovators. They either run their own companies or they're bosses in some way, right? They're just amazing. And they want to be able to contribute not only to the community, but to our roadmap. So that's a way that we see to incentivize some of the MVPs, is having them have direct conversations with product managers in focus groups. Our product managers, a lot of them are on the community working with customers directly. I told you a little bit about our idea platform, where you can go in and submit a feature. That conversation doesn't end after you submit it, right? So there's going to be communication about that too. But MVPs get a special kind of status. They might get special time. They might have a sneak preview. I know that the MVPs got a sneak peek of the new Salesforce UI prior to yesterday's big to-do. So it's just cool if you're really into product and really into being an innovator.
So these are actually not my words, but a few months back, Ali Greer, I believe, was the one who did an entire talk here. It should be in our Ustream archives, and specifically on ambassador programs and MVP programs. So I'm going to quote what I remember, and you can find the entire thing. And I did a Storify on it. Okay, so you can find the link to the Storify on the meetup page for Ali Greer's talk. And the thing that's really popping out, because you were asking about MVPs, okay, we'll tweet out the link to it too, so you can loop back around. And that is, they had a bit of an oops, and she was really transparent about it. And it, if I recall, please fill me in if I missed something, was that the early ambassadors and MVPs that they chose were definitely super users and advocates and really engaged, but somewhere along the way they got the impression that they were going to be able to dictate what the next features were and in what order they were coming out. And so they had some learning to do around, yes, listen to what they want, give them what they want to the extent you can, and make sure it's aligned with other business things, because it can feel like, oh, we're community managers and everybody loves us and we're solving people's problems and we're listening to the voice of the people and advocating to our executive team, and oh, wait a minute, they're not actually the ones running the company. Like, there's that bridge between like service and, oh, wait. And so I highly encourage checking out her slides at least, and we'll tweet out the link to her resources.
I just want to add one thing, that there is a really good YouTube video about the Salesforce MVP program. I think it was, I don't know when it was developed, but a couple of years. Yeah, that talks about community brand ambassador type stuff, and it's definitely worth looking at.
I think Phoebe kind of touched on it, but motivation, I think, is a key point to figure out for kind of generally for any ambassador program. Figure out the motivation for why, excuse me, for why they're a fantastic member, a fantastic influencer, a fantastic ambassador, and just figure out how to key into that and really play that up as much as possible. So, did you have a comment? Yeah.
I was just going to add to, for TechSoup, for our online community, I think Susan had started it, but we have a Royal Court, something similar, and it's basic, but just keeping it exclusive and private and extremely looped in to kind of, like you were saying, with the changes that were coming to TechSoup, we just found it really helpful.
Cool.
Were you guys say something? Yeah, it's our, they're the moderators of our branches, and so our MVPs who have volunteered to kind of go beyond the regular scope of duty, and so these are some of the rewards.
Cool. Next question? Yes, up here at the front again. Oh, sorry, did we have one in the back first? Back, and then we'll get to you next. Yes.
It sounds like either you know it.
Mike, please.
It sounds like either you're a member and you understand this already, or if you're not, there's no clue. And so it kind of belies the image of openness. So I guess cutting to the chase, if you're a nonprofit, then you'd want to experience it. If you are not already experienced with the program, how would you vicariously get that experience? Would it be through a meta organization potentially, where you could experience sales forces programs, or through or would only be word of mouth?
Cool. So just in case the stream didn't get that, the question was, especially with a closed community, there's a lot of benefits to having a closed community. So how do you kind of explain the value of that when you can't access it unless you're a customer, related to the Salesforce communities, and then also kind of, it's a great broad community question.
Yeah, so our community is actually much more closed than the Success community, where you can have a developer org, which is a free org, and be able to access that community. For trust purposes, we chose that route, and so we don't allow developer orgs to access our community, and I think it helps us have kind of a higher level of real profiles and real people, and not kind of have some of the trust issues that happen in other communities. We do struggle with how do we open up that community so other people can experience it. We are going to be launching a pilot soon where we are going to allow certain groups to be public. So you will be able to look through the posts in your particular group but not participate unless you are logged in and authenticated. You would have to have a Salesforce user to be able to do that. If you're interested in trying it out, we do have 30-day trials that would get you access to our community, so you can both try out the product and try out our community if you want. So you can just go to salesforcefoundation.org and start a 30-day trial, and again, you get to have that sort of temporary experience. Longer term, we definitely want to open up those groups, particular groups, right? We have to do it in the right way. We have to let people know that we're going to start opening those groups. You know, there's some expectations setting that we're going to have to do as community managers because it will kind of change the tone and tenor of what people post. So.
Yeah, the Success community is broader focused, so there's more people in there, all kinds of people with different licenses, but also the majority of the content in the community, if you're just reading, is available just straight from Google. Actually, most of our traffic comes from Google. So if you wanted to view the answer boards and maybe not like or comment yet or never, you are still welcome to take advantage of that. So we welcome one and all.
So the question is there kind of a meta level? Are you asking particularly with Salesforce or just in general? Okay, so the question is community platforms that kind of allow you to have like a half and half model almost of some visible to the public, some behind a registration wall. Is that? Right, to give people a preview and to entice them to join. Yeah.
Sorry. So, yeah, let me take that. Yeah. So I think it depends on the goals of your community. I mean, the goals of our community, initially at least, are to help nonprofits use our product more effectively, right, and help them build impact in that way. So if you're not a user of our product, you know, you're not our primary audience at this point. I'm not saying that our community won't grow beyond that. Certainly it could in a few years, but, you know, we're starting with a focus that we can manage. You know, we certainly think that our community members are much smarter than we are, and certainly, you know, giving them the place to collaborate on solutions, you know, around Salesforce and around bigger ideas and bigger solutions is something that we want to enable, but it's just not where we are right now. You know, we're pretty young in terms of community, about 2 years, and it just wasn't our focus initially. Not to say that it won't be soon.
Right. Yeah, social entrepreneurship. Yeah, that's a great. I mean, that's a whole topic unto itself. Really, that I think is a great topic that we should definitely get kind of on the agenda for when we can have a deeper dive into it. On just kind of on the topic of platforms, I know CMX did a really great guide to community platforms. I haven't read through it myself, so I don't know. If Carrie or David, if you're listening, don't. Yeah, it's on their website. It's available. I think they probably go into like kind of privacy levels. Randy Farmer also wrote one for Ning that, full disclosure, I edited, so that does go into privacy levels as well. So there are some things that you can kind of compare those. And just one final note on that. I know we want to move on. that's something we dealt with at my company, at the last company I was at, Town Squared, where, you know, we were building a community around privacy, security, private conversations. So how do you show people value when you're telling them that their conversations are private? You don't want to diminish the privacy. You know, we looked for opportunities where there were things that weren't particularly sensitive information that were really great use cases of the platform. And we actually reached out to the people involved in those conversations and said, hey, this is a really great example of the best of Town Squared. Can we kind of use this in some publicity? Can we use this in some outreach campaigns? So I think if you do it with that eye of respect to the member, you can, most people, if you come to them and you say, hey, we want to show off the conversation you're having because it's a really great example of the best of us, most people are really flattered by it, as long as it's not a super sensitive topic. So, did you want to say one quick thing on that? Okay. Yes.
Well, actually, I wanted to pick some brains and get some opinions, so bear with me, and thank you all. I was working with Salesforce many years ago. I had many crash and burns, which were the most incredibly wonderful experience for me in terms of, well, really learning how to work with nonprofits, you know, learning how to do this thing where people have tremendous fear, and figuring out, you know, who I go to and how I talk to them and how I bring people along. I wouldn't have learned that but for Salesforce. So I just, we let it go, and now I'm coming back. So thanks for that. I'm in a circumstance with a nonprofit, and they haven't asked me to do this, but they've talked about, well, we really need to do more with social media. But then when I really look at them, they actually have a very vibrant community, but it lives in email. It's an educational organization. And they have this phenomenal reach with what they're doing with email, not so much with everything else. So they're thinking about all sorts of things. Well, I need to do an Instagram, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. And I'm thinking, you know, what is it that you're doing so well with email? And these are a bunch of A-kids, right? These are parents in the Bay Area. They're A-kids. They love information. So if I were to advise them, I would want to be cautious about saying, well, use this platform or that platform. So when you're looking at somebody who presents this to you, and they don't even know that they have this phenomenal community, they're not even really aware of how effective their email is. That wasn't even part of the conversation. So I sort of discovered this. So given that, how do you approach an organization when you see this is where they're really effective? How do I show them the potential of growth, and where would I start?
Yeah. Dorothy, I'm going to put you on the spot with this. Diversifying smartly, diversifying your community smartly.
That's wild. Are you me a year ago? Or maybe this is just like a known nonprofit education in the Bay Area thing. And it started by getting permission from the executive team to talk to community members, you know, the ones that you already know, and getting some insight from the programs department as to some archetypes, right? The really prepared person who's always the like, I'm going to do all the research ahead of time because I know this phase is coming and my daughter's going to want to buy clothes that are too sexy and I need to be prepared because all my friends with kids that are 1 year older already went through it. So the prepared mom, there was the advocate mom. Anyway, you know, we did some psycho demos and then talking to them and just listening. And I really thought that they would all live on Instagram because everybody's saying that that's where moms are. Nope. Our people are on Facebook, our people are on Twitter. And it didn't take a lot of time. I think it probably took less than 20 hours, and I was able to construct this really solid story for here's where they already are, and here's where the ones who are already talking about us to other people are doing that already. And you might be surprised.
You always got something.
I mean, even though I work for Salesforce, it's not about the platform. What is the value to the people who you're sharing information with, who you're working with? And I know that's easier said than done because everyone is like Periscope, Twitter, this, that, whatever, the next new thing, and it's not about the next new thing, it's about what's right in front of you and how to best serve those people. So if your people are on Facebook, okay, think about the strategy there, but you should have a broader strategy first, and then there's different vehicles that will help you get there. Sometimes you need a live event to supplement a Twitter feed, whatever it is, but I would say try to get them away from being platform focused, because that's later on.
Cool. We've got time for one more question, and then we'll wrap it up with a little networking and finishing off the copious amounts of booze on the back table. Anyone have a fantastic question to end with? No. Oh, Lewis has a question.
Tweeted it earlier. If our two Salesforce experts could speak, I'm curious to learn more what you've learned from one another, and kind of maybe you mentioned, say, features that you wish Salesforce proper had from the nonprofit side. I was curious to hear like what examples you were referring to, since we couldn't really explore. I went to look for the community and couldn't see it. And I'm just curious to hear more kind of where you learned from each other, and maybe have also realized now these are differences that are pretty critical.
So what the success communities have learned from Power of Us and vice versa.
Sure. That's a great question. So one example, a concrete example I can give is we've had such astronomical growth in the success community, but I can't be credited with that. It's growth because Salesforce is growing as a platform. We're growing the number of customers, therefore the number of people joining the community, it goes up too. So because that growth has been astronomical, I think there's a couple things that we might have taken for granted, and one is the onboarding process. Right now, people get a welcome email, but it's very broad. It's not tailored at all. We don't refer to any groups. It's just, we barely refer to just the community itself, and I told you about all the different sections of our community. So that's the onboarding experience, and if you're lucky enough, somebody in the community will greet you. It might not be me. I try to greet people when I can, but when there's 30,000 people joining a month, it's not scalable. Whereas in Alicia's Power of Us Hub, they have this amazing, dope onboarding wizard. I love it, and I'm screaming, where I'm Phoebe, and I'm joining the Power of Us Hub, and it asks me questions about what products I'm using, what I'm interested in, and it prompts me to start following people and joining groups, so that there's some stuff going on in my feed, even before I start, even if I don't plan to post that day or maybe in a while. There's already something there, it's already safe and inviting, so that party is already full swing. So for us having such a big community, that's wonderful that we have different things to offer people, but we need to be better at onboarding people and welcoming them.
Thanks. So I should say too that Phoebe and I actually work very closely with the product manager of communities at Salesforce, because we are two customers essentially of his product, and so it's actually been very cool for me to be able to have those conversations with him and really drive changes in the product. That's been pretty amazing. So I learn from that process all the time. I would say, from Phoebe, I've really, they have a killer MVP program. So Erica Kuhl, who works with Phoebe, and Molly Masterson, they have an awesome MVP program, an amazing user group program where they're driving in-person events that actually help solidify those online relationships that are happening, right? So you have the online component, they have events and live events that really sort of solidify those relationships. I think Phoebe does a great job, encouraging and supporting this sort of distributed model, and that's not something that I've been able to do yet successfully, so I'm still trying to learn from Phoebe how she does that, because I haven't been successful at that. So we're kind of in our next phase of growth where we really need to build those group owners and have them take ownership, and we just haven't gotten there yet. So I'm probably going to be relying on you more and more for that. And our next, the next person, the next community manager that's coming in, that person is going to have a big job in terms of that distributed model. So.
Awesome. Any last thoughts from Karen, Dorothy to share? Okay, awesome. Oh, we've got prizes. We have a winner. Yay!
That is perfect.
I apologize for my cackle live stream.
5 favorites and 5 retweets. And so you win the Salesforce swag
What you
bag.
always wanted.
Very nice. So we just had Alana win the lovely.
Co-branded event with us in March in San Jose. So that'll be fun. Anyway.
Yeah, and what Susan just said there was Edutopia, which is who Alana represents, is doing a co-branded meetup with us in conjunction with NTC in San Jose in March. So look out for that. Thanks everyone for joining us here. Thanks everyone for joining us on the live stream. And yeah, thank you guys very much. Drink, eat.
And be out here by 9. Oh, it's Rosette. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I just turn?
Good job, you guys.
Great job.
I just finished
I don't have my work pad, but I put my
Yeah, I am. I'll reach out to you.